So when did you first start using wah or Autowah, either one of those?
I started back in the late 90s. Was trying to get different sounds, getting into amplified music. I was always a huge rock fan. And, back in the day, we had great bands. Not that we don't have great bands now, but, growing up listening to guitar players, I wanted to kind of incorporate that sound into my fiddle. And then I started first with pickups. And then in early 2000s, I started playing electric fiddles and eventually getting into all the pedal world. And and the wah pedal was really the pedal that I that kind of immediately caught my attention. Since I was a teenager, it just gives me this emotional creative process where I can express myself a little bit further rather than just playing the acoustic sound or without a wah. You can have distortions, you can have delays and all that. It just opens so many different doors, as we all know. But the wah has this nice emotional touch to me.
Yeah, like when we have our bow, that gives us a lot of really expressive abilities. And then adding the wah pedal on top of that, it's sort of like squares all those abilities, right?
Yeah, it opens up another door. When you get into that door, and then there's another door, and then you change your bow, playing, and then or you just get closer a little bit to the bridge, and all of a sudden you have getting into the harmonics, and again it's just so emotional and kind of romantic in a way. That just that sound is so fulfilling for me that um, I have three records out, and all those records are heavily featured with a well. My second record is jazz, straight ahead jazz record, and I used it almost in every song.
Well, I mean, the whole deal about jazz is that you're asking questions, right? We're trying to ask musical questions and then answer them. And that's a great question and a great answer.
Exactly, yeah. My first song on that record, it's called Red Carpet. I'm starting the solo with regular just acoustic violin sound, and then I'm having like a question and answer thing with the wah. So I'm like starting a phrase, and then the answer to that phrase would be with a wah pedal. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it kind of allows you to do a call and response thing with yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. So maybe talk about, I love the way you use auto wah as well. I tend to use it mostly like when I'm chopping, just sort of the same way a funk guitar player would, but you use it a lot more, almost the same way that you use the foot pedal wah. Maybe could you explain to people the difference between the two and how you use them?
Autowah is a little bit different because it controls the filter a little bit more. And I found it easier to use when I have longer lines, like longer phrases, because I don't have to like rock the pedal all the time. Although I do like to have a control of my sound with my foot. Um, Ottawa gives me this the response that I'm having from the bow is really cool. It kind of has a different sweet spot, if I can call it that way. Also, I like to use um, like when I'm soloing, I'm doing a lot of pizzicato, um, style. Also, I feel that the Ottawa works better on a pizzicato style than the regular, wah.
Yeah, like with the regular wah, your foot is what's controlling like that sort of that high the toe down sound versus the heel down sound. And with Autowah, it's literally your volume that controls that, right?
True, and then depending on the pedal, you have what they call, some of the companies they call it like a humanizer. So you have knobs where you can kind of tweak your sound a little bit towards the frequency that you hear in your head. At least this is where I start from. I have like a sound in my head that I want to get to, and then I just, kind of fool around with the pedal and tweak it to the point where I get to that sound that I hear.
So you're using more pedals, right? You're a more artist.
I use more. I use Boss. I really like the AW3, which is right here. Uh, get it better. Um, so lately I'll be using that. And I also picked up, I have no connections whatsoever with this company, um, Donner, Donner. I picked up this in Amazon. It's an Ottawa pedal, um, because it had great reviews, and I was just kind of eager to check it out. And it was inexpensive. And let me tell you what, this pedal rocks.
Yeah. So what is
You
your
know, I
process for auditioning a pedal? I mean, do you go to guitar stores and try stuff out, or you just kind of read reviews and you're like, shoot, I'll buy it and see if I like it?
both nowadays, thanks to you, and people like you are doing all these great reviews of things. I can just go online and have a better information on the products. Back in the day, I used to go to guitar stores and just play there for the entire afternoon. I'm going to tell you that some people did not like me.
At least you were just playing
But
Stairway over and over, right?
no, I wasn't. No, no. But I like to check it out myself because I have the gear that I use. I have several fiddles. I have acoustic fiddles and electric fiddles, and they all have a different sound, obviously. And with the different effects, they create this. I like to call it magic because I think music is magical, and just using all these devices and pedals and all that things that we have today, it just gives another dimension.
Yeah, I'll let you just kind of talk us through what is that performance? What are you doing? What equipment are you using? What sort of things are you thinking? What are your settings? All that kind of stuff.
So this performance was at Berklee College of Music in Boston, where I normally teach. That's my day gig, as musicians like to call it. And this is my band, Groove Machine, and we like to play different stuff from funk and rock to my original stuff, which is like fusion and all of that stuff combined. And so talking about my gear or my sound for that specific solo, I use a preamp from the company called Tech 21 in New York, and
And
I
I have
have
this
this
pedal
pedal
RK5.
RK5. It's
It's
based
based
on
on
Richie
Richie
Kotzen,
Kotzen,
the
the
guitar
guitar
player,
player, signature
signature
model.
model. And
I
I
really
really like that pedal's preamp because it comes from the Sun's amp, or as they say, it's copied Sun's amp in a pedal.
pedal,
And
and
it's
it's
very
very
simple.
simple.
When it comes to like EQing and preamp, I'm very simple guy. I'm like, high, treble, middle, bass, and that's about it. Volume and little gain. Um, so I picked that up, and I really enjoy the sound coming out of that pedal. And then I go to my more effects, and I normally use a little bit of overdrive. They have a pedal called the Juicer, so it's an overdrive pedal. Gives a little boost to your signal, but not only the signal, but the playability is different. So I have a little more gain right under my fingers, if I can explain that, properly. So I don't have to do a lot of physical work with my fingers on the string. They kind of they feel, I don't know, electrified. So the touch is a little bit different, and that's what I like. So overdrive, and then I would go into the Wachter. This is their wah pedal, like a mini wah. They have a mini series that I really like because I can put everything, all the pedals that I need for gigs, I can put in like small box like that and almost put it in my back pocket. So the Wachter is the next one I go into, and then I have a pitch shifter that sometimes I use. I like an octave down, octave up, but it's not featured in this solo. And then the next is the Autowah. So this one was the donor that I mentioned, Autowah, and the juicer with the preamp. And I think I have a little delay on that as well. Um,
Maybe talk a little bit about how it's different with an acoustic with a pickup versus an electric.
sure, that's a long story, um, as you would imagine, but the 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 difference between the acoustic and the electric, to me, is that the acoustic has this resonance right here, right in front of my face, my ear, so I can kind of feel the instrument breathing, as I play. Versus the electric, it's dead. So there's no um, life in it until you plug it in. Now, I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that these are the differences. So as I dig more with my bow into when I play acoustic, I can feel the fiddle's response. It's like, getting back to me saying, "Yeah, man, I'm digging it. Do it." And the electric feel is kind of different. I have to push the fiddle and say, "Hey, I'm playing. You know, get back to me." Um, and enjoying both all the time. And normally at gigs and stuff, I always have both handy, depending on the style and depending on the song that I play. I would go, pick one or the other. For it turns out that for my like jazz stuff, I would sometimes go a little more towards the acoustic, just because the way I would play jazz versus if we play funky or Van Halen stuff and something like that, then it would be the electric, preferred.
Yeah, what's the difference when you're playing with the acoustic and you can hear it under your ear, and it's a little harder to maybe hear what's coming out of the speaker to maybe to understand how are these pedals reacting to what I'm playing? How do you manage that from a monitoring situation?
Well, monitoring is a great question, and as my friend Christian House once mentioned, he told me, you have to have your sound in your ears all the time, because you know that this is not an instrument where you can see things; you have to hear it. And then when you're adding things on top of your sound, it just makes it a little more compelling to get to the point where you want to be as comfortable as possible on stage and think about what you want to play, not fighting the instrument, finding the sound guy, or whatever else is involved. So sometimes I use a Fishman mini loud box, and that's a great sounding amp for most of my gigs, unless it's like a bigger stage. But if I have a bigger stage, the line out of that amp doesn't kill the speaker, right? So I can send it to the board, and I just turn the amplifier towards me, and I have the sound right there, and if I need to, tweak it, I can tweak it. Um, so that's my thing when I play live. I always need to hear myself, 100%, or we have a problem right at the beginning. And acoustic is a little bit more challenging, I would say, than the electric. And I think just because the instrument is live, and I think it wasn't built, to handle all the stuff that I'm putting the signal through. All these frequencies and all these overdrives and whatever are not meant to, originally was not meant to use on the fiddle. So the instrument wasn't built to handle all of that. So we have to work that out, and this is where it takes some time and experience to get the proper sound, so it doesn't feedback. Especially with the wah, you're getting to that sweet spot sometimes within 2 seconds, but then you can lose it the next second. So you have to figure it out, like how long you're going to push that. How long going to rock the pedal down, or release the pedal, so you still have that nice sound. So it's really easy to lose that with the wah pedal and get into the like squeak, wah, 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 and that's the sound that you don't want. you know
So you've always got to make sure that that speaker is loud enough that you can hear it over the instrument that's under your ear.
Absolutely. I don't play fretted violins, so I rely on my hearing and my left hand. And sometimes I just plain dark stages. I don't see my left hand all the time. I don't have to see it, luckily, but I have to hear it. So one of my favorite things to do with the wah pedal is to combine it with the overdrive, or sometimes distortion, but we have to be careful with the distortion pedals. So I'm always a little bit leaning towards overdrive versus distortion. So wah, distortion, and then a delay. I started kind of goofing around with this, trying to mimic, obviously, the guitar sounds of people like Steve Vai. Josef Nadj is one of my huge influences on my playing. And And I don't remember how this started, but when I connected the three and when I had like a good amp, it all of a sudden sounded almost like that. And this is where I started tweaking that. And this is normally what I would do. I would find or start somewhere and see if I like it. With the wah pedal, the things that I do not like is when we have too much of the low frequencies or too much of the high frequencies. So I'm trying to get to that middle range. And as fiddles, we have a lot more high frequencies transferred to the amplifier rather than the middle frequencies. So this is the sweet spot that I'm always trying to get that middle sound a little boosted, and then the overdrive pedal is giving me that option. Versus the delay, it just opens up the sound. So all of a sudden, I feel like I'm playing in an arena, not in my room or home studio or smaller gigs or whatever. So the sound is just kind of big and overwhelms. Sometimes it just like sits on top of the band, and I think that's cool, and I'll always like that. And again.
And it's not just, you talked about like you use an overdrive and delay with your wah, which is the same thing. I love using distortion and wah and delay all together. It's not just each pedal, it's each pedal in concert with the other pedals, and how do they react to each other as well, right?
Exactly. And sometimes it even changes the sound, the order that you put these pedals in. I normally put the delay or any time-based effect at the end of the chain. But I've known people doing it like going directly into delay, which I kind of find it, weird, but it worked and it sounded great. So there's different ways of putting things together. And I think the most important thing is we have to spend time with it and just kind of fool around and see, hey, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try that. And if distortion works better with delay and watt, well, just go for it. And if overdrive goes better, cool. Or maybe put both together. Sometimes I would do that. I would go distortion, overdrive, wah, and delay. But I have to be very careful with the distortion pedals because they feedback so easy. So maybe I will bring the gain up on the distortion, or I should say the volume, not the gain. Volume on the distortion, and then tweak the gain on the overdrive. So that touch that I was talking about, right, that I have kind of boosted touch when I play, this gives me a little more boost if needed, depending on, again, on the situation. But so sometimes it's doable to have overdrive and distortion at the same time. And sometimes I would use that with an Autowah, like that first video was overdrive, Autowah, and delay, because I wanted to play longer phrases, longer solo with a wah. So I kind of felt it might be inappropriate for me to use the my regular crybaby or the more Wachter. Um, another quick thing that I just want to mention is when I play quicker notes, right? So 16th notes or eighth notes and triplets. This is where I would most of the time go to Autowah. When I would have like longer lines, longer notes, more linear, like this is where I would go to the regular wah, because I can kind of control that longer sound a little bit more. So it's not I'm not giving the Autowah, you know, um, the option to do what he wants to do. This is where I would control it. Say, okay, I want a little more of this, a little more peak on that note, but I'm going to come back on the next note.
Yeah. What are some of the settings that you find on some of these auto wah pedals? And how do you set those to get the sound that you want?
That's a good question. This is where tweaking comes handy, and you just have to spend time with it. So, for example, this AW3 Boss Dynamic Wah has this option when it's a humanizer. So it has a manual knob and knob for sensitivity. So I would kind of tweak and see what it sounds like. Um, One thing that I found that is giving me good results is that I don't play longer notes with my bow, trying to have like the wah 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 wah, the time of the wah. I play shorter notes on wah wah da gu ga, and then I tweak that. I'll say, okay, maybe I want more sensitivity um, on my bow, and then I get that more. Um, there's also decay button. Decay is pretty common in Autowahs, so sometimes I tweak that. Although on this one is a 12 o'clock. Um, and then some Autowahs, like the AW3, has several built-in, just like the looper. Um, like built-in settings, and then you can just kind of use that. Do you want like the high frequency more featured, or you want the lower frequency or middle or something like that? So go in between all these settings and see how that reacts with the instrument. And again, you may tweak this for one fiddle, and then you go to the next fiddle, then you have to tweak it again because it's a different instrument.
Well, hey man, thanks for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate your time and your expertise. Where can people find you and your music? And are you going to hit a tour sometime? Or yeah, where can people go hear you?
Well, I'm before COVID, I did a lot of gigs, and I toured all over the place nationwide and played in Europe. I even went to China in 2017. Right now, I'm kind of laying low. I think I released a record this year. I'm not sure if it's going to be just my original music or some other things featured. I'm still kind of deciding on that. I'll probably go to Europe this summer in August to do some dates over there, and they can find me on josephnadj.com or rockfiddle.com. That's going to bring you to the same place. And thanks for having me, Matt. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy talking about these things, so it is my pleasure and my honor to be featured in your show.